Scotty, first off, Tyson Stengel, we're going to see him this weekend.
Yeah, it's looking more likely. So he's moved really well. It's one of those. There's no fortunate injuries, but the upper limb injuries have a little bit of a silver lining in that generally those players can run pretty early in their rehab, and that's been the case with Tyson. He's moved really well, and he's got the all clear to play. So we've just got to think through exactly how that looks for us. But yeah, starting to get some players back, which is a good sign. Jack Henry's probably in that boat as well. He's come to hand really quickly, so he's at the stage now where we're seriously thinking about him playing.
Speaking of the Henrys, obviously a bit of a blow for Ollie. How's he going?
Yeah, I mean he's sore. It's a difficult one to talk about. It sounds really nasty, and it is in some respects. Although the period away from the game won't be too long, I'm led to believe. So. Yeah, he's sort of up and about, obviously sore, but looking like he might only miss a couple of weeks, which is better news than or at least better news than I first thought.
How early in the match did that happen?
No, my understanding was pretty late. Yeah, and even then he was a bit sore, and it wasn't until quite a few hours post game that he realised the extent of the injury.
I know that Patrick's not in line to come back this week, but can we get an update on him and his recovery as well?
Yeah, going really well. He moved really well at training today, so we're obviously going to hold him back. We've been really clear about that. Not sure exactly where it is, except to say that we always thought it would be pre-bye somewhere, so not this week. So after this week we've only got 2 weeks pre-bye, so it's still looking somewhere in that time frame.
There was at least, I think, is it still status quo with the other guys that are still maybe another week away? You thought you Rowan, Coney, Bowes, there's a number of them.
Yeah, they're all different, obviously, but I think my comment this time last week was that we're optimistic with all of the guys who are currently out getting back pre-bye, with the exception of Menegola and Reece Stanley. So my understanding is that that's still on track.
And with Jack, is it as simple as whether he plays VFL or AFL, or is it sort of an option to have another sort of heavy training week?
There's no VFL game this week. Yeah, which no, well, I understand because the buys are kind of a bit all over the place and they're quite regular. It's a challenge that every club faces. In my mind, I'll just speak for myself. It makes it a little bit easier when you don't have that game because it's either he plays or he doesn't. And the information is that he's available to play, but there are a number of things to consider there. Obviously, Jack in isolation, but just the mix of players and how we integrate a big group of players. I don't think 8 coming in 1 week is a good idea necessarily. So we just need to think through that a little bit more. But we haven't been managing expectations with Jack. But I will say I've been quietly optimistic over the last few weeks watching him train that he'd be ready to play a little bit earlier than maybe we thought 6 weeks ago.
I'm obviously getting a step ahead then, he has to clear his play, but he played pre-season going forward in a couple of the practice matches. Obviously Ollie goes out and you lose potentially Mark and Toke there, but also a little bit short in the back without Coney. Is he straight to the back line or is that still a debate as well?
No, we need to think through it. It's a debate. Yeah, it's a good way of describing it, and it speaks more to his flexibility more than our need, because it is, as you say, Rowan and say Ollie Henry out. Tyson fits into that mix as well, forward, but DeConning out, back. Logically, you'd think that Jack would help with that defensive group as well. So, yeah, we also have sort of other positions for him in mind longer term as well. So that's an interesting conversation for us at the moment.
You said he was very good last week, Jonathan Stegler. He's got a big job this week. You mentioned also last week that he might not play every game because of his body. Is he still right to go firstly this week? And if he is, it's a big challenge with Darcy Jackson running into form at the moment. Yeah,
he's right to go. So it's going to be a little bit hard to explain, or it's going to be a little bit hard to forecast the future. I think what is clear is that he won't play every week, and we've got a loose plan, but the deciding factor there is really how he's going week to week, and we just don't have any intention or desire to push him out there when he's feeling a little bit sore. Even if we have a real need in the ruck, I think looking after him and making sure we can have him available towards the end of the season is going to trump any short-term imperative. To the Darcy and Jackson question, we've got a lot of admiration for those guys, and again, so much of AFL footy at the moment is timing in terms of when you play teams, and I think it's logical to think that there was going to be a period where they need to sort of feel each other out and work on their cohesion and connection, and almost halfway through the season they appear to be getting that, so that's bad luck to us. They're a big challenge, and Darcy in particular spending a lot of time in the ruck. He's a big ruckman, and I've got a high regard for him. So yeah, big job for not only Segs but all of our taller guys.
Do you plan for Fife to be in the 22?
I'd play him as a sub for another week if I were them. But no, 2 weeks as a sub's probably enough for him. So yeah, plan for him to be in the 22, and he's a little bit harder to plan for than maybe he has been in the past, because they earmarked him as a forward through the pre-season, and I know firsthand what a quality player he can be in that part of the ground, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him spend decent stints in the midfield as well, but a little hard to predict.
On the rucks, Freeman, you have experience coaching, I guess, different ruckmen with Blitzards being a completely different player to some of the other rucks you've run with over the years. Jackson and Darcy, at least physically, are almost completely different sort of prototypes. How much does that factor into planning to play a team when the two guys that are in the centre jumping in there can sort of play different games almost?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that we ask every week. You're trying to work through a process of firstly respecting the opposition's strengths and what they can do, and as you say, they're different types of players, so you need different plans depending on which one's in the centre bounce, and then it's more, in a way, it's at least 50% of it is what happens after the stoppage as well, and they present a different challenge. So we respect them and have to be aware of their strengths as well, but it won't be a matter of completely thinking about how we nullify them. We'd like to think that we can present some challenges for the opposition as well, so we'd be relatively proactive in how we go about those matchups.
I think we all saw the excitement you guys have about him in that sort of half an hour he spent in the middle. Jai Clark, he was excellent around the centre bounces. Does he a chance to come into 22 this week? Has his sort of position been decided upon where he is this weekend?
No, it's a little bit early in the week for us to be absolutely decided on it. We've got a few balls in the air, but Jai didn't do his chances of coming into the 22 any. Even like a quarter and a half or whatever it was. It's not so much about output necessarily, but just I think all of us were sort of looking just for little snippets of what he could be. And the temptation there is to think, well, he's shown us in those snippets that he's going to be a really good AFL player for us, and we can sort of lose track of what we're trying to do in terms of his management. But there's no reason to think that he couldn't come into our 22 and play well.
Just a couple of questions on the voice. That's right. Do you support the AFL stance on the voice of Parliament?
Well, I see my role here as a spokesperson for the club, and our club will take a position on it, which will become public in time. It's not my position to announce that. What I do know is our club won't be taking a position where we're making any demands of anyone else. We really respect every individual's right to choose, especially if they're well educated on the matter. And that's what I'm trying to do personally. I take the position that my private position should stay just that. But in terms of more broadly, big organisations like the AFL taking a position and making clear what they think, I think helps everyone in their decision making. As soon as it becomes a position where those organisations are trying to influence others and make demands on how they make private decisions, that probably oversteps the mark for me.
Has there been much discussion about it at the club?
Yeah, one of the things that we think that we can do as a footy club, particularly with our playing group and our football department staff, is help educate everyone around it. And the more information we get, or at least I'll speak on my behalf on this one, the more I think I understand it is a complicated issue. It's not as it's not as simple as saying, do you believe that the Indigenous people should have a voice? It's a lot more nuanced than that, and we're taking the time to sort of, educate our people and put the information out there, but being really clear that once you have that information, your individual position on it should be just that. It's not up to us to make any demands.
Who's the best Indigenous player you played against?
Oh, so many. Sorry? All with, yeah. Well, my mind does go to the great players that I've played with. I always struggle to rank players, full stop, but I always had a soft spot for Darryl White. The confidence that he played with might not sound like much, but it was a high-pressure AFL game, and I remember him taking a mark on the boundary line one day, and he had the confidence just to kick this slow torp from the boundary line that just curled in beautifully. And he reminds me a little bit of Jeremy Cameron. The stuff he did at training was just out of this world, and a lot of the ways in which the modern players play now, I think was intuitive to the Indigenous players a long, long time ago. I wish he had given me more notice, because it would require a lot of thought. I've got a twin brother, but the Cracker brothers, growing up watching them play, I sort of always wished that Brad and I had the same connection that they had. Would have been nice.